You know, it's often that you see on YouTube videos people talking about their least favorite tropes. Now, trope, for people that don't know, is a commonly reoccurring setting or maybe situation that a character finds themselves in. I think a classical example is the chosen one trope, right? Where you have the one person chosen to save the world that reoccurs over and over again. And people get annoyed with tropes, but here's the thing, I kind of like some of them.
Me too.
Yeah, they just are kind of fun. And so what we want to do is talk about some of our favorite tropes, why they're our favorites, and give some examples of each trope and why we like them.
So TikTok, I feel like, has really like broadened these amounts of tropes. So it may not be typical. This is Dance of Thieves.
Okay.
And the trope of this one is forced proximity. So kind of we have like...
These are all going to be romance tropes, aren't they? Every single one of them.
So kind of like, it's not like, oh no, there's only one bed, that type of a trope, but like close to that, because you're forced to be together. But this one, I loved it so much because they're literally, it's like this world where one family thinks they're in charge, but then the kingdom thinks they're in charge, and then like you have all these fights of who gets what land, whatever.
Yeah.
So they're together for a brief moment, and then next thing they know, I don't remember what happens, but they get chained together. So they're like they are chained together, and then they escape together, and they have to like survive while they're chained together, and they hate each other. It was just really great. I really liked.
Love forced proximity.
I like the forced proximity because it's just like you get lots of banter in those usually, like the flirty stuff, and of course they hate each other, but they don't hate each other, so I like it.
All right.
Thanks TikTok for forced proximity tropes.
Well, talking about tropes, I'm going to go with the granddaddy of them all, and this is the chosen one trope, right? So this is Eye of the World. For anybody that's picked up this book or perhaps watched the first series of The Wheel of Time here, the first season of The Wheel of Time, you know that Rand al'Thor is the chosen one. He's the dragon reborn, born to either save the world or break the world. It's great. I don't know what I always say to it. It's great, right? And this trope exists in a whole host of books, everything from Wheel of Time to Harry Potter, right? But the reason it exists is because it's really good and fun and interesting. It's interesting to see what happens when you put the weight of the world on one person's shoulders and see how everyone interacts with them and how they interact with the knowledge that they're supposed to do something. It becomes an interesting thing, and you know exactly who to follow. This, in particular, is a fantastic series. If you like the Chosen One trope, or some of the other tropes, actually, we're going to mention here, this follows quite a few of them. If you like those, highly recommend jumping into it. It'll be a really good series to pick up. Good luck finishing it. It is 14 books, and they are all large. This is maybe the shortest. But it is very much worth it. Probably my favorite series I've ever read.
And that is huge praise right there.
Yep.
Okay, this is more of a trope that I like in movies or TV shows.
It happens in books,
But it does happen in books. So, oh my gosh, training? What was my words?
Montage.
Yeah, a training montage where you're like, you think of like Mr. Incredible, where he does all of his training. That's like one of my favorite montages of all time. You just see a lot of progress happen in just a little bit of time.
See, I love it in sports movies where you see them like taking a few shots and doing some sit-ups and all of a sudden they're way better.
Mm-hmm. Or like Mulan or something.
Yep.
Like there's a lot of them. This is a good book example because
that is a good book.
They are very much fighting the whole book. Her friend Poe, his grace is fighting, I think, and her grace is killing. So basically, you get a lot of training, I'd say she did start pretty good, but she definitely improves throughout the book. Not just in fighting, but also there's some good like character development for her too.
You know, another good example of that trope, I think, in my mind, is Name of the Wind, where you see Kvothe growing in skill quite rapidly through different things. Yeah. Through him attempting a few different kind of not battles, but conflicts, right, that allows him to grow fairly rapidly, right? So I think that's really what the training montage is, just the rapid growth through training and fighting and those types of things.
And usually memorable scenes or something.
Yep.
Something
and you often see it. Another good example is Assassin's Apprentice, right, where you go through and Fitz is being trained to fight, and you get better and better, stronger and stronger, and more formidable.
Yeah.
So great one. All right, the next one I have is what I'm going to call the classical quest trope. And I brought out the classical example of this in Lord of the Rings, where it's like, hey, we have this one task we need to accomplish as a group. in this case, destroy a ring, and we all need to go do it. It happens pretty often in fantasy literature that there is this quest that everybody needs to go on, and Lord of the Rings may be the quintessential example of it. And I like it. It's fun knowing what the stakes are and knowing what they're meant to do, and then seeing what happens along the way. A really fun trope for fantasy books to follow, which is why so many fantasy books have been following this trope for literally now generations. In fact, interestingly enough, this book is very much a quest style. The series isn't, but the quest really reveals the chosen one. But it definitely starts very familiar to this in hey, we need to go accomplish this quest.
And it starts in a tiny town with some
Gets a group of people together to go accomplish something. Yep.
Yeah.
Very,
There's
very
a lot of
same.
traveling in this one too, but it's very different.
Yep.
All right. My last one is enemies to lovers, because I can't just not do enemies to lovers. I wouldn't say this is like the best enemies to lovers, but it's recent and it's obvious. So the hating game. This one is from. Oh, it is a movie now too. Workplace. They hate each other. They're rivals. They're fighting for promotion together. For each of them want the promotion. Lots of banter. It's hilarious, and it's kind of like one-upping each other and making fun of each other, and it gets a little cruel at sometimes, but then it's just mostly just very entertaining.
Yeah.
Really good movie adaptation, by the way. This is better though.
Oh, all right. I like that all three of your books were probably enemies to lovers, if you're being honest there with it.
Yeah, actually.
All right.
It's a new favorite too.
All right, so here is my last one. This trope is what I want to call this is the Black Prism. It's the Lightbringer series, first Lightbringer by Brent Weeks. But the trope I would call is the inheritance trope. It's the I am inheriting something, a position, a power, influence. I'm the long lost prince. The
Like
Darth Vader is my father, right? Like
Ratatouille.
it's that type of thing, right? Where I don't know that I'm going to inherit this thing, right? But all of a sudden I do, and it turns my life upside down. And so a great example is inside of this book, where a young man learns that not only is his father important, but his father is basically something close to a superhero or a god, right? Which is interesting because you see this repeated over and over again in books. Again, Harry Potter, another great inheritance trope. Percy Jackson, inheritance trope, right? You get plenty of these where you have this inheritance that comes to them that gives them some sort of mythical ability, status, station, whatever, and then you see how they deal with that. And so the Black Prism is actually an excellent example of that, where he gets the inheritance, but also his father in this situation is still alive and comes to see him, and you get some conflict and interesting things there, and a tremendously good series where you deal with all the ramifications of that. But I like that trope. For whatever reason, I love the hidden prince trope, maybe another way to describe it, right? Where you don't know, oftentimes the person themselves, right? Maybe they're an orphan, maybe something like that. They don't know what they're going to inherit. They don't know they're going to inherit until all of a sudden one day someone shows up with an owl and a letter.
I like it. I feel like tropes, I'm comfortable with them. Like
You're right.
I know what I'm getting into. It's not super hard for me to just like figure out what's happening.
Yep. And then the interesting thing is, at that point authors can put a little spin on it.
Yeah.
And you feel more comfortable with that spin because you're like, oh, I know how this is going to go. Oh, you changed it a little on me, but that's okay because I was comfortable already.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right, which is it's kind of fun. And I like tropes.
Yeah.
I think they provide that comfort that you're talking about.
I think the only trope I don't like is like I like love triangles, but
I know what you're going to say. I know what it is.
If the love triangle is between two guys and one girl, I'm in. But if the love triangle is between one guy and two girls, I don't like those, I've discovered. But typically that's because the main characters of my books are usually girls, so
You feel the jealousy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I see how this works. Well, I like that all of your tropes were romantic.
Wait, fighting is not romantic.
Montage, you're right, that's fine. Okay, it wasn't romantic. The majority of your tropes were romantic, but that's fine. It just shows tropes are often a good way to stereotype what type of book you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
So if I say, hey, this has an orphan who's the chosen one, who's going to inherit a bunch of stuff, you can be like, oh, it's kind of like X, Y, or Z, right? And then you can go from there. Or if I can say, hey, it's a forced proximity book where there's a lot of, they're training a bunch, and it's enemies to lovers, you can be like, I'm going to buy that book, right? And that's just what's going to happen.
I'm in.
Which I guess is one of the values of tropes.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I'm curious, what are your favorite tropes? Like, let us know Please comment and tell us ones we're missing here. There are lots and lots of tropes
Yes.
that you'll find. And lots of them have multiple tropes in one single book that they follow down. A favorite of my trope, a favorite trope of mine, excuse me, that I couldn't find a good example of besides maybe Lord of the Rings, was the tavern trope, right? Where they're all in a tavern and someone barges in and is like, hey, there's lions outside. I don't know, something, right? Like
another good Kavoth one.
Yep, a great one, right? So just I like that trope as well. And so there's dozens of these. We'd love to hear what your favorites are.
Yes, please comment and like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Yep, I'm Blake.
I'm Jamie.
We're Blamie.
I guess so.
See ya.
Bye.